Welcome back to the program. I'm speaking to Reverend Kenneth Meshoe, the President of the ACDP in Parliament, and Cheryllyn Dudley, a Member of Parliament in the ACDP. And we're talking about SONA, we're talking about President Jacob Zuma getting more dangerous, and the divisions in the ANC and all kinds of things. But now, Pastor Kenneth, we want to talk about hate crimes and hate speech bill. This bill was drafted by the Department of Justice. It was tabled, I think, or put out for comment on the 1st, or in October. The deadline was 1st December. We asked for extension on that. They gave us extension to the end of January, 31st of January. I saw thousands of submissions being made on that bill. And, the biggest problems being the broad definition of the bill, that, people are insulted, feel ridiculed by people saying things. They then can construe that as hate speech. So it's problematic. And, just watching the media, I see that not only Christians, not only religious people are opposed to the bill, but also non-religious people. The media, secular society is also concerned. Your comments on the hate speech bill?
Well, I'll focus mainly on the concerns of the church. We do not want to be muzzled. There are other laws that can be used to deal with hate speech. Now, as you correctly said, the major concern is the definition of hate speech. It is so broad that anything goes. If anybody alleges that you offended them by what you said, and they can easily use it as is right now. But I've also heard the Deputy Minister of Justice, John Jeffries, saying they are not intending to apply this bill to the church. They do not include the church. But what we are saying in response to that is that it must be specifically stated in the bill itself. If they are planning to exclude religions, then they must specifically say that. Because if they don't do that, this hate speech allegation has been used internationally to attack the church, particularly by the homosexual lobby groups. When a person would say homosexuality, according to scriptures, is wrong, then they say that's hate speech. And we do not want people to refrain from speaking the truth of the word of God because they are afraid somebody will say it's hate speech. So in its current form, I do not believe it will succeed and it will be passed in Parliament. Because even though the Deputy Minister of Justice has tried to explain this, the minister himself is also concerned that is going beyond what the Constitution gives us as the right to freedom of belief, freedom of speech, and so on. So definitely there are going to be amendments. And if there were not going to be amendments, then it would end up in the Constitutional Court, where it definitely would also not pass.
It won't pass constitutional muster. That's what a lot of lawyers have been saying. So, Cheryllyn, we've ended the first part of the public participation process, which is making comment to the Department of Justice. Now that bill, if it's going to be amended, will be tabled in Parliament, and then Parliament is going to start the second round of public participation so that people can write and make comment on the bill. But it's still problematic. And, John Jeffries said that it's not government's intention to silence or interfere with the church and everything. But it doesn't have to be their intention, because there are people, there are groups, special interest groups, homosexual groups that will use it, whether it's government's intention or not, they will use it to clamp down and to silence the church on the issues of biblical authority. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Definitely. There's always groups who intend for a certain outcome. That's why it's been so important that the people of South Africa have responded to calls like people like yourself, to ourselves, to other groups, to actually to have their say. Because it is important that where there are unintended consequences, not unintended for those particular lobby groups, but unintended in terms of the majority of people in South Africa who value the freedoms that democracy have brought. And we know that democracy is imperfect in every way. But it is, whilst it's the worst form of government, it's better than all of the others. And so that is our problem that we're stuck with. So we need to defend democracy. Democracy is vitally important in terms of freedom of religion. Now, it's important also, though, for us to get this clear. Freedom of religion, like other freedoms, is not freedom from being criticized. People must be able to criticize. Like, for example, if we don't like the fact that people are being sprayed with doom, that can, and somebody's offended because we've offended them by saying that they shouldn't have sprayed with doom, that can't be. We can't get to that ridiculous place. It would also clamp down on our freedoms in terms of politics. Anything we want to question about anything and anyone, it can be highly offensive to the person we're questioning. But it's vitally important in terms of a free country, freedom of speech and a healthy democracy, that we can question, that we can criticize. Yes, we have to say, as the ACDP, we are often extremely disturbed at the levels of insult and the way people speak to each other, and that people are demeaning in terms of pulling down other people and don't think about the integrity of the person. And that doesn't just happen in secular realms, it also happens in the Christian community. And it would be nice if we would all be far more respectful in the way that we speak to each other. But we can't go to the point of making this a law where somebody decides, if you call me pink because I have a pink skin and I'm offended, this becomes the end of the world. We cannot be that touchy. We have to learn to have a thick skin for the sake of our country being the best it can be. We need to stretch each other. We need to question each other.
And I think I like what Steve Swart says. This is going to have a chilling effect on free speech, free expression, freedom of religion.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just too far-reaching, especially, Pastor Kenneth, you said there is already laws on our statute book that can be used to combat hate speech, hate crimes and all of that. And they have been doing that.
Yes.
The courts have been doing that. So why have this draconian piece of legislation that's going to harm, I think, just create more problems than it is going to create solutions.
We know the biggest thrust is, of course, the LGBT issues.
Yes.
And the biggest lobby groups behind this would be that. And then, of course, other people link on and they don't realize that it's going to backfire on them. But the main agenda would be that. And we have to, whilst we would encourage people to be more respectful, yes, in terms of communicating with each other, we really cannot get caught up in that agenda, because that agenda is something else and it is heading somewhere we don't want to go.
Now there's another issue that the church is busy with, and that is the CRL Commission, the Commission for the Prevention and Protection of Religious, Cultural and Linguistic Groups, communities. And they are busy investigating churches because of all these issues that happen with the doom and the petrol and jumping on people, biting snakes, all of this horrible things, that exploitation of poor people that is happening mainly in the Gauteng area. And so the CRL Commission has now stepped in, investigated all of this, and is trying to find solutions to stop this. And their answer is to bring some kind of regulation, peer review mechanisms. And it, of course, has caused all kinds of mayhem in the Christian church. There's been information going out that is not really true about what the CRL Commission is doing. And you know, there's been insults against the chairperson of the CRL Commission. And we really got into conflict where we shouldn't have the church and the commission. But you were saying that you met with the CRL commissioners and you found something out that people don't really know. Tell us about that, Pastor Kenneth.
You know, we met with the CRL commissioners yesterday in the offices. And we were blown away by what came out of that meeting. Because what they were saying is not what the documents are saying. And I said to them, but what you are intending to do, because that's what Christians need to know. What is the intention? I said to them, what your document is saying, for example, talks about the peer review council. Now, according to the document, this council has to give license to religious organizations, okay? Now, when pastors are told that it will be an interfaith organization that will license you, then they will object. And I told him, I object to that, all right? They said, no, but that's not our intention with the peer review council. I asked them, but what is your intention? Because your document is saying what we are saying. They said, no. We are trying to say if anybody wants to start a new religion, then there must be a council consisting of people from different religions to look into this application, so that if a person wants to denigrate Christianity and start another one, that those who represent the Christian faith should say, no, we do not agree with that. And I said, but what about the peer review committee? Because there also below the peer review council is peer review committees. They said, no, these committees are meant to represent every faith in South Africa. And what they have to do is to ensure that if there is a problem caused by any Christian, that this committee must deal with that problem. Again, we said, but this is not what your document is saying. All right. Now, to cut the long story short, they finally agreed that they have to amend the documents. They have to redraft some clauses so that they will take away the misunderstandings that were there. Now, what they were saying to us, particularly the chairman said, we do not want to clamp down on churches, as some people are alleging. Again, when I asked the question, why are you not intervening and confronting directly those that are offensive, that are doing things that are harmful to the others, like those who are feeding people petrol snakes and so on? They said, we are unable to do that because they are throwing scriptures at us. And some of them want us to go take this matter to court, which they said we don't want to do. Then she also said, the chairperson, we do not want to see courts interpreting scriptures. And I agree with them on that. There is going to be a court case next month in Limpopo, where the MEC of Health applied for an interdict against the guy who was spraying people with doom. Okay, she got a court interdict. So this matter is being taken to court. Now, they say, the commissioners, they are worried that if the court starts interpreting the scripture that these young guys are going to throw at them, that will set the precedence for the future. Okay. That will set the precedent, and they don't want that to happen. So what they want to happen is that Muslims must take care of issues that relate to that faith. And they want Christians and church leaders to address issues that belong to the Christian faith. They do not want to conflict the two. So what they admitted that maybe did not come out clearly is what the document is saying. So the document we are given the undertaking is going to be revised. And before it's made public, we'll also have sight to it because of the issues we raised. And this coming week, the chairperson will come with one of the commissioners to address the ACDP conference, the FCOP, where we will be raising issues that we are concerned about. Churches from different parts of South Africa that will be represented by members in the ACDP will be saying, Chairperson, this is what you are saying, and this is what the document is saying. And I'm hoping that by then, they will be having the revised document ready, because the current one is definitely not ready.
So we've got to agree that there's been a lot of confusion, because there's been a lot of misleading information going out to churches, and they have been reacting badly. I don't think perhaps the CRL Commission was communicating as well as they could, helping people understand their intentions, again, because it's intentions and what actually comes out. But Pastor Kenneth, the one thing that we, and Cheryllyn, the one thing we want to stress to Christians out there and to pastors is that this is a recommendation. It's a Chapter 9 institution, the CRL Commission. And they make a recommendation to the Department of Justice. It's not a law. It's not a piece of legislation. It's not a bill. So they can't pass legislation and they cannot amend legislation. They can only make a recommendation. Correct. So one of the things I'm doing, Pastor Kenneth, I'm inviting the chairperson of the CRL Commission, Mrs. Salavu, into our studio. I'm busy talking to them right now. I want you to come here and to explain herself. What her intentions are, what she's trying to do with regard to these recommendations to bring about or to solve the problem with the charlatan pastors, with the doom and the petrol and all of that. I think most people are not misunderstanding her because they're not hearing from her. If they made mistakes in their document, she needs to clear that up. But I think in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, we'll advertise it on the show. We're going to get her in. We're going to talk to her. We're going to also talk to Deputy Minister John Jeffrey about the hate crimes bill and their intention from the Department of Justice. But I think what you're doing now is helping a lot to clear up a lot of the confusion, because when we confuse, we make mistakes. But we want to talk more about this, but we run out of time. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about CRL Commission, Hate Crimes Bill, and some other issues. So don't go away. More with Pastor Kenneth Meshoe and Cheryllyn Dudley.